So then she runs back to Laban and her mom. One of the things, if you notice that it doesn't mention dad,
Right.
um, one of the things I read about that is he was probably incapacitated in some way, either by age or something, but that that Laban really was the had taken the role of being a spokesperson for the family.
Right. Well, so he was actually born. So she was born to to Bethuel, which is Nahor, Abraham's brother's son.
Son, right?
Basically, they're first cousins.
Yeah,
So, which is not uncommon, in that era. I mean, that's what was done. I mean, heck, goodness gracious, that's further than Abraham was to Sarah. I
that's
mean,
right. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, that was
yeah.
his father's daughter, not by his mother, but by his
Right.
other wife.
Well,
So
half sister.
yeah, so this is half sister. Yeah,
Yeah,
sweet.
yeah. That's why he didn't lie when he told Pharaoh that it was his sister.
Right. Well, it was a technicality. He knew what he
Yeah.
he knew what he was doing. But I mean, they do mention Bethuel a little bit later on, but again, Laban takes the
Yeah.
charge. So obviously, I mean, obviously Nahor, if he's even alive, is would be
Yeah.
well advanced in age. Bethuel, his son, would probably be somewhat advanced in age as well. So Laban, obviously, the younger one who would meet this. But yeah, she goes and tells her family about this. She's got gold ring in her nose. It's half a shekel. He put two
Bracelets.
bracelets on her wrist, which is 10 shekels. So again, a shekel is a little bit less than an ounce. So I mean, but still, that's some pretty good jewelry at that time.
Yeah.
And she runs back, and of course they, he runs back and says, comes back to see him and comes back to see her. So Laban goes down and sees these camels because it says that he came down there to where at the well where the camels were. So he sees this menagerie
Caravan. Yeah.
of 10 camels and all the gifts and everything else that's on it. So, and we find out a little bit later when Jacob comes along that Laban's not the most scrupulous guy.
Yeah. Right.
So
Yeah.
uh,
I'm sure all those camels packed with goods was pretty
yes,
impressive to him.
right, which was the dowry, really.
Yeah.
So
Right.
I'm sure he saw that and was like, yeah, because of course the servant, Eliezer asks, "Is there room to lodge? For us to lodge at your father's house?" And that's when she goes back, and
Yeah.
of course there is. And Laban comes down and says, "Well, I've made what are you waiting for? I've made room for this." I'm sure he sees all this and like, "Oh yeah, oh yeah."
Yeah.
So moving on, and so basically when he comes down there, going down to verse 31 says, and he said, "Come in, blessed of the Lord. Why do you stand outside since I prepared the house and the place for camels?" So come in, blessed of the Lord. That's an interesting one. I mean, it's interesting, like we were talking earlier, that they were giving glory to God in a manner. But again, even where they are, I mean, Abraham didn't want his son to be married to any of the idol worshippers and false god worshippers that were happening in the Canaanite area. But where they are, when he goes back to Mesopotamia to his family, they kind of are too. I mean,
Right.
which
Yeah.
also makes yet another reason why. I mean, obviously God wanted, God had a plan for Abraham and wanted him to leave, to inherit this promised land. But it also makes you wonder as well. I mean, how could, in order for God to really affect Abraham in the manner as well, was to also get him away from this, this area of false idol worship and all these other things. So that's no accident as well, So, but back in it, so it's interesting for him to say, "You blessed of the Lord," speaking to Eliezer from Laban, is sort of like, on one hand, it sounds pretty good. It's just like, well, okay, so maybe they might be God-fearing. But on the other hand, he walks up to a caravan full of gifts and jewels and all kinds of stuff, along with 10 camels, and knowing that Laban's not going to prove to be the most scrupulous person later on and also have an issue with some stolen household idols. He himself is an idol
Yeah.
worshiper. So I'm sure he's willing to accept any god that's going to bring forth these kind of riches and,
Yeah.
and payment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's no talk about what kind of relationship he has with his sister. You know, so
Yeah.
he might be more than willing to sell her. So
Well, and like you mentioned before, there was some kind of communication between them and Abraham.
right,
So maybe they knew that, hey, Abraham's rich, man.
yeah,
You know, he's got all kinds of stuff. And then when they find out that, oh, this guy came from Abraham,
right.
he's got all these camels full of goodies.
Well, I mean, he does specifically say, because right before they're sitting down to eat, he said, "Let me tell you my business." Eliezer says it to them, and that's when he does say, starting with 35, "The Lord has greatly blessed my master, so that he has become rich, and he has given him flocks and herds and silver and gold, and servants and maids and camels and donkeys." So he makes it clear, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
he's a rich man. I mean, in that time, that's a rich man. That
Yes.
rundown.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
He may not have actual property at this point, but he does have a lot of, you know, he's got manner of food, he's got manner of service, he's got manner of money. You know, so
Yeah.
he's
Got
good.
it all. Yep.
So basically, we get to this part where he just, I mean, gives a testimony of everything that's happened. You know, the prayer that he made to God, the covenant he made with the oath he made with Abraham, what Abraham wanted him to come for. You know, he'd be released of the oath if it didn't work out. You know, how he, you know, how the angel of the Lord was going to go before him, how he had prayed to God right beforehand, let the girl who comes up and gives me drink and my camels drink as well, may that be the one. And like he tells them, you know, when I got finished saying this in my heart, she showed up.
Yeah.
So it's not like he had to go through any, he didn't have to wait. I mean, it was that simple. So he's testifying to them at this point, you know,
Right.
and asking for this is why I'm here. You know, will you, basically in the end, will you give her to my master's son? So, and they agree. And every time this guy, I mean, like I said, every time he went to pray, when these things happened, anything, I mean, he bows himself. It says he bows himself low before the Lord. So Eliezer's a guy who, you know, worships God and understands the respect and the fear of God, because once something happens, he bows himself low in utter and complete reverence.
That's right. Yeah.
So it says, well, now if you're going to deal, you know, if you're going to deal kindly with me, at verse 49, and truly with my master, tell me, if not, let me know that I may turn to the right or the left. And then Laban, because it does say, this is where it mentions that Bethuel's still there, because it says, then Laban and Bethuel replied, the matter comes from the Lord, so we cannot speak to you bad or good.
Yeah.
So, but obviously Laban's doing most of the talking, most of the running around, you know, that sort of thing. So,
well, in that instance, it mentions Laban first before the father, so it shows that the authority has passed from the father to the son.
He's handling the family business at this point.
Yeah. He's so there may be something wrong with Bethuel, or maybe he just got lazy. Who knows?
Right. But it is interesting. I mean, it is kind of strange to say that this matter comes from the Lord, so we cannot speak. You know, here is Rebecca before you. Take her and go. Let her be the wife of your master's son, as the Lord has spoken. So I mean, it's like they accept this testimony as the Lord, but it's just sort of interesting. I mean, what their connection to the Lord would be, or if they just accept this, you know.
Well, and like you say, with the being pagan worshipers or idol worshipers anyway, is it just
we're good with your God because he brings really good stuff, you know. Take her and go.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously they know who Abraham is.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously they didn't grow up around him, but they know who he is, you know.
Yeah, but a lot of times you'll see references like this that even pagan worshipers will say, you worship the one true God, the God of heaven and earth, the God, you know. And so, you know, it seems like to me they recognized the degree, because after this testimony, it would be hard to say, well, God didn't orchestrate this.
Right.
It's like, I prayed this, that's what happened.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty obvious that God had a
Yeah.
major hand in
Right.
this whole thing.
Your God's working for you, and He's working for us right now because we got all this stuff to
Right.
give us.
Yeah. And at
And
least
everything,
in
you know, they
this
believed. Obviously,
instance,
they believed Him. Everything that
yeah,
you say has happened. So,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. And at least in this, in verse 50 and 51, at least here, they are accepting God for what he's done.
Mhm.
Now granted, he's brought riches upon them, so
Right.
that's makes it easier for them to accept it.
Right. And once they accept this, I mean, because again, the other part of this, once again, is the angel of the Lord has gone before them. So,
Right.
I mean, the Lord has the ability to bend hearts to His will. We're going to see that later on with, um, we're especially going to see that later on with Pharaoh and
Yeah.
dealing with Moses. You know, if He can harden them, He can also soften them. So, I mean, that's as well. But once again, they say, you know, we can't speak bad or good. Here's Rebecca, take her and go. And what's the first thing he does? Bows low and blesses and praises the name of the Lord. So,
Yeah.
and then from there, of course, the servants bring out the articles of silver and gold and the garments, and he gives them to Rebecca. Also gives precious things to her mother and her brother, and they you know, they eat, they drink, they go to bed the night, they wake up the next morning, get ready to get on their journey to get back. They ask her, you know, they ask them, can she stay? You know, let her stay for, you know, a time, 10 days, and then she can go. And he's like, you know, I don't want to hold, the Lord has gone before me and made my way prosperous in this. I don't want to hold back and wait and fool with the, you know,
Yeah.
with the will and the favor of God. Let me do what I came here to do and let me go. And
Yeah.
that's what I call her and say, well, whatever she wishes, we'll go along with that. And she's ready to go. So,
And I guess that was a custom then
right,
for the bride to stay with her family for 10
right,
days before she went. And so that's kind of where that came in. But she's like, no, I'm ready to go. Let's get on with this.
yeah,
You know,
let's do it.
the So then off they go. Well, the blessing that they send her off with is very
It's
interesting.
almost identical.
Yes,
Yes, yes,
very interesting.
yes,
The Our sister, may you become the mother of thousands of 10,000s. May
right,
your descendants possess the gates of those who hate them.
right.
I mean, yeah, it's almost identical to the
The blessing of God to and
yeah,
the covenant of God to Abraham directly. Yes, so it's almost identical.
right. So God is intervening even in them
Right,
to send her off with that kind of blessing. But
right. And
so
that's probably what it is. I mean, some of it obviously has to be. I mean, Laban's going to look, you know, favorably on this stuff because of the amount of the gifts. Obviously, when he goes there and he sees the camels at first by the well. I mean, it did say that he told them, "Well, I prepared already for you."
yeah,
So, I mean, what she told him was obviously, you know, she comes back with the gold and is obviously, you know, is impressive, but also, you know, there's some material stuff there.
right.
And I'm sure she said he's got camels, you know, and stuff and all this kind of stuff. So I mean, he's obviously impressed with that, but you know, the angel of the Lord did go before him, and there's obviously like you said, God's intervention in their heart of this thing, you know.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
and obviously the dowry was acceptable because you know,
yeah,
back in this area, I mean, the custom would have been for the parents to set up the marriage,
yeah,
you know. So
yeah,
this group is basically, I mean, obviously Laban's speaking for him. Like I said, his name is placed first, so obviously he's handling the family business. But I mean, there's no interaction between. They're interacting with a servant. I mean, obviously they're going to know who Abraham is. Nahor is going to talk about Abraham, even if it's like my crazy brother was spoken to by God or a God, so to speak, and left. So they know who he is. You know? So, but so obviously the Lord has intervened in their hearts. Um,
yeah, exactly. And um, it says in verse 10, the servant took 10 of his master's camels and departed, for all his master's goods were in his hand.
right.
Um, that's in the New King James. I saw somewhere where it was saying that what he took was actually a representation of all the
Right.
riches that Abraham had.
Sure.
So obviously that dowry was acceptable.
I'm sure it was impressive, and
Yes.
also not only God going before them, but even the human aspect says, yeah, why don't you go ahead and go marry this rich guy?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
That works out for the families, you know. So
Yeah.
I mean, they don't know what the
Exactly.
future holds, but I mean, still, yeah, go marry this rich guy. Go do
Yeah.
this. So,
Yeah.
but obviously, she's not terribly interested in that. Like I said, a woman who's going to stop and offer a stranger a drink is a normality. One who's going to draw literally 300 gallons worth of water up to for the guy's camels, and God only knows how long that takes. What she's doing by a jar, no less. That's a whole different kind of woman with a whole different type of heart and servant's
That's like
mentality. And
that's like 2,500 pounds of water.
yeah,
If you convert it
yeah,
to pounds, that's a lot of weight
yeah,
for a woman to,
yeah. I mean,
Megan,
right.
Megan, go get us 300 gallons of water.
Yeah.
We'll wait on you.
But like not out of a hose, out of like a big hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And you
Yeah.
gotta,
Draw it up with a pail.
draw it up. You gotta pour it out of the thing into your jar. That thing might only be so big. It might not, fill the jar the first time. So you gotta drop down.
Then you're going to lift this jar up on your shoulder and carry it to wherever it is you're going to go with it.
So Rebecca goes with him. They go back. Isaac's coming from his going to Beer Lahairoi, for he's living in the Negev, and he goes out to the field to meditate toward evening. Looks up, and here comes this caravan. And behold, little does he know, his new bride is on this caravan, and of course she's coming with him. She asks the servant, "Who's this guy in the field?" And she says, "This is my master's son, Isaac." So she puts a veil on, which is very customary for the time. The betrothal previous up to the marriage, they cover themselves beforehand, and so she did. And then after she covered, then the servant told Isaac all the things that happened. So I'm sure he recounts everything from his dad,
Yeah.
from his father telling him to take the oath and what he wants him to do, to him being there, to praying to the Lord making a way, to this thing happening almost right after the time that he even spoke these things in his heart, and everything that he went through, and the coming back. And so I mean, I'm sure that's probably pretty. It's like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
So my wife to be is here, okay. And then Isaac, of course, this is what Abraham wants. Isaac's going to do it, and he brings her into his mother's tent and took Rebekah, and she became his wife, and he loved her. So,
and taking her into Sarah's tent,
right,
shows that she takes over as the matriarch of the family.
True.
So she becomes the matriarch. But Isaac accepts her, but it probably didn't hurt any that she was beautiful.
Well, he accepts her before he even sees her.
Yeah, because she had a veil over her face. Yeah.
And that's why, it says she became his wife, and he loved her, after.
Yeah.
So I'm sure he like saw her, I was like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
we're going to do this. But, yeah.
Yeah.
But didn't hurt that she was good looking.
Yeah.
So, of course.
And it says he was comforted after his mother's death.
Right. So obviously he was having a hard time with that.
Years. Huh?
Yeah. I said, but obviously he was having a hard time with that.
Yeah.
So
well, cool.
It created some, hole, obviously, in his life that only, female companionship in way of a mother or a wife is going to, fill up. So that's that.
All right. So that's chapter 24. Megan, you want to finish it up here for us?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know, because you've said so much. You've been yakking the whole time. I don't know if anyone wants to hear you say anymore. Goodness gracious. Do you want to say goodbye to the whole 1 or 2 or 3 people who are going to watch this?
Bye.
I guess she's ready to go.
I don't know if I can say any better.
All right. Everybody, we'll see you next week. Bye.